You're listening to the A.C.T podcast. You better like my daddy's show, you creeps.
All right, welcome to the A.C.T podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Christian DeFoya, joined once again with Tom Lord. How you doing, Tom?
Doing all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I come to Tom whenever I want to discuss all the big ideas of the world because everybody else is too stupid. No shade at Noah, but I'm just kidding.
I mean, if I knew what the hell I was talking about, I wouldn't be 37 years old and working at a so there's that.
Well, I mean, hey, man, the college system.
Do you want to get, is that where you want to start?
We can, actually. That was kind of a perfect lean right into it. It is weird because I feel bad for you in a lot of ways. I feel bad for a lot of people because they were kind of sold a false bill of goods.
Right.
And I think that's bullshit. And I don't think that is thrown out there to college students, right?
So the incentive going into undergraduate, we had to take something called it was an aptitude test called the AIMS test. I'm not actually sure what the acronym stands for anymore. But when we were in high school, this would have been the early aughts, we took something called the AIMS test around 2005. And if you scored properly in all four categories, you would get full covered in-state tuition to any of the one of three public universities here in Arizona, being Northern Arizona University, Arizona State University, and the University of Arizona.
Yeah.
Get free tuition. So that wasn't that big of an expense for me. I think at the end of undergrad, I had about $6,000 in debt, which is rather paltry.
Yeah.
And it was, I was a super senior. It took me an extra semester to graduate, and I was kind of a fuck up, and I had some debts that were not related to my scholastic studies.
Yeah.
They're mainly related to heroin. And so, undergrad was not that big of a debt for me as it is for most people. And only graduating with an English literature degree, I didn't expect to get that great of a job. You know, I was thinking maybe pre-law or like something like that because it's foundational study. And, I was thinking about maybe going into education, being an educator, or, pre-law or something like that. But I just, to get out of Tempe, Arizona, and to get away from the heroin and the opiates, I just ended up traveling to the Balkans. I had all of this money on me, excluding the $6,000 debt. And I went to the Balkans, and I just kicked around Greece, Serbia, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Romania, spent a lot of time there. And as I was traveling back to the United States, I had a grandmother who passed away in 2020, and she is from New England. And she said, I think you need to remove yourself from the environment in which you were doing drugs. So don't go back to Arizona. That would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So instead, when I arrived back in the U.S., I just landed in Boston, and I stayed there. And it's such a university town. There are 18 active universities in Boston itself, as well as Cambridge. And those include MIT, Harvard, Northeastern University, Boston University, where I got my master's, Boston College, Emory. There are so many, one can't even count them. UMass Boston, etc. And so I was just working in a sandwich shop in Boston, in Cambridge, actually, in Kendall Square, where MIT is located. And I was serving these fucking sandwiches to these kids who were studying something really cool.
Yeah.
And I had just been to the Balkans, and I was learning about international relations degrees. And I ended up applying for the Yale-Jackson School, and I had a shoe in there because one of the people who was writing a letter of recommendation for me was Howard Dean, former presidential candidate and governor of Vermont.
Uh-huh.
So he had written me a letter of recommendation.
That guy?
Exactly. During the Iowa primary. Yeah!
That's my favorite.
So Howard Dean had written me my letter of recommendation to the Yale-Jackson School, but I got my application in late like a drunk degenerate. And so I ended up getting into Boston University as I was working for MIT. And it was just, I was living in such a bubble of academia that it seemed like in order to advance my life, the thing that I needed to do was to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I was also convinced by the academy that getting a degree in international relations would secure me a job in either the State Department or somewhere in the intelligence community. Most preferably the CIA.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was what was sold to me. And unlike undergrad, graduate school was incredibly fucking expensive. And I am still paying it off and will be paying it off for the rest of my life.
Can I ask how much it was?
My debt right now, and this includes field studies. So I had to finance my own field studies through like Sally Mae grants.
Yeah.
And I was working abroad in the Middle East in refugee camps for the UNHCR. And I was being paid for my time, but travel costs and all of that came out of like a student loan. The total right now with interest is about $105,000.
Oh my God.
For a 2-year degree. And I'm working at a
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredible. That is crazy
I
to
don't
me.
plan on ever paying it off. I plan on some sort of socialist government taking over and eliminating my debts, and as against all of that as I am, because I think that we all need to be accountable for our decisions, especially if it's to go to a big fucking heavy graduate program. Like, you better damn sure know that you're going to get a career and that something's going to come out of that. I did not. I was very foolish, and I was just shooting from the hip.
How many people do you think are in that situation, though?
So
obviously, your situation is different from other people's situation, but you're not the only person I've worked with or seen who is kind of in what you would call I don't even know if it's blue collar work. I don't know what we do is blue collar, but it's what would you even call it? Just service?
No, it's blue collar work.
Is it blue collar?
It's blue collar work.
I feel like blue collar have like more manual labor involved.
There are a lot of manual aspects of what we do. It's service industry work. It's blue collar.
Yeah.
It's entry level. It's
entry level. Maybe that was the word I was looking for. Is that what we are? Entry level
employees. Yeah, we're frontline employees. And the weird thing is that you'll get all of these. So a great portion of our clientele are boomers who have the capital to travel around the country in these ostentatious RVs. And they drive around, and they have very limited education themselves. And they were in a single job for 35 to 40 years and had a retirement plan, a 401k that was matched by the company, all of the and entitlements and all these things that we're not going to get to enjoy. And so they'll travel around the country, and they think that they are better than you, and you interact with them, and then they realize that you're highly educated, and it just shocks the shit out of them.
Yes.
And they still have this pound the pavement mentality. Like, my father will be like, well, you just need to go back to Washington, D.C. and pound the pavement. You just need to go and put in applications. And he doesn't understand, like, LinkedIn and Indeed.com and the gatekeeping and all of the bullshit and, the resume craft and all of this. And so pounding the pavement is not the thing anymore. And so these older folk from older generations will come into our business, and they'll be shocked that, like, the kid that's selling them diesel fuel has a master's degree from one of the best private universities in the country.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, Tom excels at that, I will say, working alongside him now with him for a few months. You are very good at engaging with people. I'm like a burnt out old tire at this point. I don't give a shit about you. Get out of here. Take your Funyuns and run, you fucker. It's gotten bad for me, but like, you're still positive and optimistic, and I think you really genuinely enjoy kind of, I wouldn't say bragging, but like showing like, yeah, I am worth more, right, than whatever you're perceiving me as. Because you see the looks they give you when you walk in. They look at you like you're a piece of dirt.
They do.
Yeah.
They also I think I look and not to glaze myself, but I think I look younger than I am. I don't think I look like a 37-year-old.
Yeah.
So I often get treated like I'm a college kid.
Yeah.
And
get right on that mic though.
I get treated like some a dipshit, undergrad kid who has very little life experience and all of that. And this is by American truckers and American customers who come in, American patrons who come in. And also the older generation, I just get treated like some kind of dipshit kid who's working his very first job.
Yeah.
And
You
then
do connect more with the foreigners, I've noticed.
Yeah, and so particularly, and I can pick out really well accents. And my favorite, we have a lot of Eastern European truckers, and now you have to disaggregate them. There are Central Slavs, and these would include Czechs, Poles, Hungarians. There are Eastern Slavs, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians, maybe Romanians and Bulgarians. And there are Southern Slavs who come from Yugoslavia. Most of them are from Bosnia. And that gets dicey because the Bosnians, they're either Bosniaks, which are ethnic. They're the same ethnicity as Serbo-Croatians, but they're Muslims.
Yeah.
They converted to Islam somewhere around the 1300s under the Ottoman Empire. You have the Serbs who are Greek Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox, and I connect with them very well. And then the Croats who are Catholic. During the wars of 1991 and 1995 in Bosnia, tons of refugees, both from the Serb side and the Bosniak side, ended up here in the United States. And for whatever reason, they all went into either diesel mechanics or driving trucks. And my brother experienced this in the early 2000s when he was going to Universal Technical Institute and he was becoming a diesel mechanic. All of his coworkers were all Bosniaks, or they all work in machining or in heavy industry.
Yeah.
And so the dicey thing when dealing with a Bosniak, I'll be like, oh, you have a great Serbo-Croatian accent. But if they're a Muslim, they're incredibly touchy because they are the ones who got genocided. There was the Srebrenica massacre.
Muslims are touchy?
They are very the Slavic Muslims are very touchy.
Just the Slavic ones?
And then but also so are the Orthodox Serbs. And so you'd be like, so when you're saying thank you in Bosniak, well, Serbo-Croatian, you can either say Vala puno, which is Serbian for thank you, or you can say Vala lijepo, which is Croat for thank you. And which one you say will totally characterize the interaction with the person you're having.
Yeah.
Another funny thing I've encountered is that a lot of dudes will come in and they're deep Eastern European. They are deep Eastern Slavic, and they'll say, "I'm like, so hey man, you have a great accent, my friend. Where are you from?" And they're like, Ukraine, and then I'll be like, Slava Ukraini. And then they'll look down and fuck that. And I'm like, oh, you're actually from Russia. You're actually from Russia. But they just think that Americans hate Russians, which we don't. I have nothing against Russians at all. I have no fucking... I'm actually a big fan of Russia, and I support a huge détente with Russia. Going back to graduate school, this is one of the things I got in trouble with. There were two things in graduate school and international relations that you could not mention.
Mm-hmm.
One, the lesser degree, was a détente with Russia. And Russia in 2014 had just de facto invaded Ukraine. They had taken over the Crimea, and there was a Cold War in the Donbass, which is the eastern part, or the Donetsk River Basin in eastern Ukraine, where the fighting is currently raging.
Right.
So if you talked about any sort of diplomatic détente with the Russians or the Belarusians led under Alexander Lukashenko, you were immediately like you would get the glare from your professors. And the interesting thing about my graduate school, most of my professors were not PhDs, they were practitioners. So they had worked in the intelligence community or for the State Department or the Department of Defense, and they were all spooks. And so they were grooming people.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Because I've heard spooks as one term.
This is not the racial epithet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, what?
No, this is like a feds,
I thought
spies.
Okay.
No, they were all spies. No, I was not using a racial epithet. Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
No, I'm not. That's the only way I've ever heard it.
No. That's what we call spies.
Oh, okay,
And so
okay.
these are all, gumshoe, spies, and they were clearly grooming our class, which was rather small, to go into the intelligence community, and there was some continuity there. But first of all, if you mentioned any sort of détente with the Russians, you would get the glare. And then, if you criticized Israel, your name went on a list and you got persona non grata, PNG, and you were like immediately limited from any employment opportunities inside the federal government. So you better, and I made the mistake. In my very first semester, I wrote a policy paper on a detente with the Belarusians. Now we could use USAID, which has now been gutted by Doge and Elon Musk and all that. But it was so ridiculous. He was right. So to the country of Belarus.
Wait, Elon was right?
Yeah, he was
Okay.
right. He was right. We were spending about $14.6 million a year on the country of Belarus, which is not very much. And what that money was going to was to support subversive LGBTQ
Oh my God.
theater groups. Theater groups. I'm not
Yeah.
making this up. Subversive LGBTQ theater groups. And we thought that this was going to topple the regime of Belarus. So that's where our money was going. And I was saying instead, we could give them actual USAID money and prop up their economy and use American soft power and create a detente and maybe open the country up. Now, I never expect Belarus to become a liberal democracy or liberal Western democracy, but we could at least have decent relations with them. And they're an important country. Minsk is very important as far as Russia is important. So I wrote this paper, and I got the Eye of Sauron upon me immediately. And I was lucky enough to have never outwardly criticized Israel in graduate school. Had I ever made any outward criticism of Israel or Israeli policy in an international relations school, surrounded by CIA officers and DOD personnel and State Department personnel, like I immediately, like they would have put me on a fucking list.
Yeah. Well, okay, you said a lot. I got a lot out of that. Then I want to go through some of it. First thing I want to go through. This is interesting. I'm trying to think which one I want to go with first. Okay, so with the Russians, you like the Russians. I don't think any Americans really have a big problem with Russia, right?
Why would you have a problem with the Russians?
I think the issue is Putin, right? Nobody likes Putin.
Well, I don't have any problem with Putin. Okay, here's the ignorant thing. America keeps propping up these candidates who keep getting arrested or like poisoned and killed by the Russian intelligence services, and a lot of them turn out to be very corrupt, and they preach democracy and, you know, a lot of the liberal order items that are important to the American State Department types. They all either get poisoned or imprisoned for life. And the thought that Russia, post-Soviet, is somehow going to become an open, liberal Western democracy is foolish.
No,
Nor should
yeah,
that be an
nobody
objective
thinks
or a goal. Why would we want that? Who cares? We should just have decent relations with them because they're a world power.
That's kind of what Trump wants, right? He just wants, like, he doesn't have a huge problem with Putin. He just wants him
Doesn't
to,
actually?
like, chill
I
out.
think Trump kind of admires Putin.
Yeah, he doesn't have a huge problem with. I think the thing though is he's a dictator, right? Is that not what he is? Not a dictator.
Russia's always gonna have a dictator. Come on, they're never gonna have open and fair elections. Like, fuck off.
Yeah,
And
like
who
he
cares?
hasn't had an open and
And
fair
why
election in like 20 years.
Why
right?
do I, as
25
an
years?
American, why do I, as an American, want Russia to have open elections? I don't give two shits. It's not.
No, I don't think that's the problem. I don't care what they do either.
No.
I think the issue with Putin right now is, I don't want to say rewriting of history or something. There's almost like a, kind of not calling a spade a spade. Like, we know what he is if you want to live in that reality, right?
Is he that bad? We've had
No,
guys,
I don't think he's that
we've
bad.
had guys like. We've had guys running the Soviet Union, which was 2/3 bigger than Russia, and Khrushchev constantly threatened to nuke us. He put fucking nuclear missiles on Cuba.
Right.
That's far more dangerous than Putin. Putin hasn't done a goddamn thing to us.
No, right. I think what I'm saying is though, do you think that people, he just is what he is? Like, there is almost
Russia's
an attempt.
always
There's
going to have a
there's
dictator.
like an attempt right now to kind of reframe him.
So Russia,
And then there's also the attempt to like show him as like the worst thing ever.
when the Soviet Union collapsed between 1991 and 1993, there was a period of incredible instability, and there was even almost a Russian civil war and a coup d'etat. Russian tanks were firing shells at what's called the Russian White House, which is parliament, and they were firing tank shells into there because the communist hardliners were trying to take over from the liberal the liberal camp, who was kind of reformists.
Yeah.
They're reformists. Russia almost went through a civil war. So Russian Gen Xers experienced this quote-unquote freedom. Finally, there are open elections. The Soviet has been dissolved. They're no longer under communist rule. And they experienced MTV and Levi Jeans and Pizza Hut for a little bit. In fact, there's a famous commercial where Gorbachev goes to
the Pizza Hut.
Yes. And this is a famous, it's actually infamous now. And this family is sitting at a Pizza Hut table, and the older generation is saying, Gorbachev fucked everything up. He totally destroyed the order that we knew, and the Soviet was stable and predictable. And the younger generation, the Gen Xer, is like, oh, but now we can enjoy the Pizza Hut. Hey.
Americans don't even enjoy pizza.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I wouldn't feed it to my neighbor's dog.
I'm like the only person on the planet who actively defends pizza.
No, I wouldn't feed it to my fucking neighbor's dog. But
you can feed it to mine.
The Gen Xers had initial enthusiasm for the opening up of Russia and the breakdown of the Soviet Union.
Right.
That like after 2 years, that dissolved completely. And this little administrator from St. Petersburg, who ended up becoming the mayor of St. Petersburg, this very small man in stature, this little low-level KGB officer who had worked in Dresden, ended up working his way up through the ladder. And this is Vladimir Putin. One of my favorite, if I can share an anecdote about Vladimir Putin, this is fascinating.
Have you ever met him?
I have not.
Okay. Tom's met like everybody.
Just to give an idea into the character of this man and how much he clung to the supremacy of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Putin, in the biography that's written about him by Masha Gessen, he was a KGB officer who was head of station in Dresden in the East Germany, so communist Germany, the GDR, German Democratic Republic, Deutsches Demokratische Republik. And the wall fell on November 9th, 1989. And then a bunch of liberals flooded the gates of the Russian embassy or Russian consulate in Dresden, and because the wall was being torn down. And they flooded the gates of the Russian consulate, and they were expecting kind of a 1968 style Hungary crackdown or a Czech Republic, a Prague crackdown, and they were expecting the Russians to use violence to crack down on this. They didn't. And Vladimir Putin was on the phone with Moscow saying, hey, when are you going to send in the tanks? And Moscow, under Gorbachev, said, we're not. We're just going to let the Germans break down the wall, and we're going to let them reunify. And so Putin takes his pistol, a Makarov pistol, and he walks out to the gates. And in German, he says, get the fuck away from the gate or we'll shoot you. And all of a sudden, all these German liberals turn around. And they're like, all right, get the fucker out of here. He's going to shoot us. That's
crazy.
So Vladimir Putin, understanding him, requires two things. One, the loss of the Soviet Union and how important that was to him. And two, Vladimir Putin has a serious fear of mass uprisings and protests and what we would call color revolutions here in the United States. And we pulled color revolutions in Ukraine, in Hungary, in Czech Republic, in Georgia. That is the country of Georgia, Tbilisi. And we pull these color revolutions, and it's always about pulling these countries into the orbit of the EU, of Brussels, and away from the orbit of Moscow. And you can have liberals or you can have Democrats or Republicans in party, but our foreign policy is always very realpolitik. It's a risk board, and we need pieces on every part of the board. And there is a continuity between administrations therein. Now, a huge difference would be that I don't think that the second Biden administration would have gone to war with Iran. And this is a very much a Trump thing. But the pieces on the board, control, and having a footprint throughout has always been a part of the
Right.
Post World War II American order.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I was trying to get at though is, do you think like we don't need to deify politicians, right? I mean, we can respect them to a degree, or we can, agree with them on certain things or whatever. I think we have an issue with kind of deifying everybody. Does that make sense?
It's especially, and I'm not trying to be an anti-Trumpist here, but it is more so than any other president in my lifetime. It's especially happened with Trump. And you have these people whose like quality of life is like clearly going down. These policies are not working out for them. This is not what they voted for. You've seen those who are like the intellectual crowd of the Rogan sphere who voted for Trump and who are now
Okay.
like,
I gotta stop you there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Tim Dillon an intellectual.
No. But I was talking about Dave Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And like
Well,
these
yeah,
others
he's
who
a
are now, like,
retard too. I don't know. I don't want to call him the comedians intellectual.
fair enough. Yeah, Theo Vaughn is not an intellectual.
No, yeah, I might shoot myself if we get to that point.
But actually, weirdly enough, and this is a side conversation, in our day and age, the voices that are prominent and the ones that are asking the questions, are they any less qualified to be considered intellectuals than those with PhDs?
No. No, because it's not that they have PhDs or whatever. It's just that I don't think that. Listen, that's the point I'm trying to get at. Is, do you think there's too much reframing right now? Everybody's trying to reframe everything in a certain way to go for a certain political moment. There's so much infighting right now, especially like on the right, because there's nobody in charge, right? After Charlie Kirk got shot, there's like a vacuum of thought ideas and things like that. Like, he was kind of the guy leading the way.
Just as a quick note,
With
Charlie
a thought
Kirk getting
bubble.
shot. Charlie Kirk getting shot was a terrible tragedy, and it was a disgusting thing. But it was the pulling of a drain plug of an overflowed bathtub that needed to happen because there was already this huge schism within the right and the MAGA movement.
Well, there was, but he was
So the
kind of the
drain
guy
plug got-
stopping it, right? Like, he was the drain, he was the plug, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so now, well, and I kind of thought that too. Remember, Trump got together this coalition of everybody, basically. Probably one of the biggest coalitions we've ever seen. They kept saying a big tent or whatever.
Right.
Big tent coalition for 2024. Of course, that's not going to work in the long term because we all had kind of one singular focus and idea, which was Democrats bad. We'll put aside all the other stuff. That's how he got voted. That's how he won the popular
vote. Can I
vote.
ask you a question? Kamala in 2024, was it the border or was it the culture thing? And I constantly go back to like white males, especially having been clubbed over the head by being called settler colonialists and things like that, and that might have driven them into the hands of a Trump where they had previously voted for Barack Obama during his second term, and this is a very common thing. Was it the culture war? Was it the border? What drove the 2024 Trump election? And it certainly was not, contrary to CNN's stupid fucking documentary on this, it was not the Rogan sphere that drove Trump 2024. What exactly was it that pushed so many people back in that direction after having voted for Biden?
Well, I mean, so that's a point of contention, I think, because some people think that the Biden election was rigged, right?
Sure.
And so that was one point. which kind of seems to make sense to me. I think it was rigged.
There were some.
I don't think Trump's popularity has dropped that much.
There were some improprieties that I think need to be investigated. One of them is weird because like there's no way Trump would have won like the city of Philadelphia in that district, but there also seem to have been like ballot improprieties and like people like shredding ballots and shit like that.
Let me put it to you like this: I think Ron DeSantis would have won if Trump would have left. I think any Republican who was common sense.
He's too autistic, bro.
No, I think he would have won against
the pudding
Biden,
cup
especially.
incident. He's so like unrelatable. He's such a fucking. Ron DeSantis is autistic.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you would have taken Trump out of the 2024 presidential poll, I think DeSantis would have won because it was shocking that we had a guy with literal no cognitive skills in the office and a running mate who was a babbling hyena who was just clearly stupid, right? Like Kamala Harris was just a clearly stupid person.
So I lived in D.C. during both Trump 1 and Biden for the entirety of those two administrations. And Kamala Harris, when she was living in the vice president's residence, was described to me by people who were close to the East Wing and understood her and worked for her as like a benzo addict, like a Xanax addict. Can I get sued by saying this on your podcast?
Allegedly.
Well, I don't have any fucking money, so the joke's on them. I don't have any fucking money, so the joke's on them. But no, like she always seemed like a vodka head Xanax addict, and she was the Attorney General of the state of California, and has an incredible resume.
Blew her way to the top.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. I mean, she went to Howard University.
We know. What was his name? That guy, Willie? She did blow that one guy, for sure. She had sex with that one guy. He was like the mayor of San Francisco. Willie Brown.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I did hear about that. That's amusing.
Yeah, that wasn't even like a secret.
Was it an extramarital affair?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's... All right. Please don't sue me. I don't have any fucking money.
Allegedly, she blew Willie Brown.
Please don't fucking sue me. Please don't fucking sue me, dude. I don't have any money.
No, but I think the thing was that, like, I talk to plenty of Democrats all the time. I like talking to Democrats, but I wouldn't say I'm like some staunch. I'm definitely conservative. I'm not staunch Republican.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that. Okay, so you have a very open filter. You are Howard Stern-like. You like to crack people up and ask uncomfortable questions.
In fact, later we're gonna throw baloney at a girl's ass.
But I always describe you also as an autodidact, one of the smartest dudes I've ever met, which is fascinating because getting back to the topic of university, you were one of the smartest people. And sorry to glaze you, but I need to in this because this is pertinent because like you have read Dante's Divine Comedy, and I will be talking to third-year undergraduates who we work with, and I'll ask them, "Have you ever read the Divine Comedy?" And they don't know. They have no idea. Fuck, I'm talking.
They have no idea what it even is.
They have no goddamn idea. But Anthony has read it, and you're very smart.
I've tried to read it. I didn't understand it fully. I tried to read
Anyone who says they did is a fucking jackass or a PhD. So fuck them. But no, you're an autodidact, and you're very smart, and it's one of the reasons why this cast is so darn fun because I don't know, you man, and the shame is that I can't talk to you about sports. I don't know.
I know. You got to learn some more sports.
I don't know a goddamn thing about sports. I don't care. It's the most boring thing in the world to me.
Well, you know what I see? I guess this is what I'm trying to say, though, Tom, is with the politics right now, it's really frustrating me. There's no logical consistency. People are kind of moving with the waves. They're going tide to tide.
Yeah.
Whatever. I like to think that I lean conservative because I look at the world through a very biblical view, right?
This is what I was bringing up. All right. Yes. All right. And, well, I have a hard time pinning where you're at politically. I do. I have a hard time. Sometimes I'm like, oh, he has some kind of sometimes kind of rather boomer politics. In other areas, he's rather progressive.
Yes.
And in other areas, you just kind of keep an open mind.
Well, I have liberal sensibilities.
Uh-huh.
You know. I know. Do you know anything about my personal life, Tom? I'm very open.
We have a 30-year gap in our history.
Okay.
I knew you when I was 8 years old.
Did you ever hear any rumors about me?
No, you were amongst a category of people in high school that managed to be ghosts.
Yeah.
You weren't you
I
just
didn't
kind
like
of
high
did
school.
You just did your own thing.
I smoked.
Yeah, you smoked in the back of the parking lot.
Yeah.
We're all the guys. So for anyone who's not listening for this, there is a geography to Coconino High School's parking lot. The front are where all the popular cunts park. The middle is where kind of the mid-tier kids and the nerds park. The rear is where the rednecks who chew and smoke tobacco underage park. And behind that might be a few stoners who go up into the now diminishing gore point of Woodlands and would smoke a little weed in there. And it's called Smokers Park. And Anthony and cats like, did you know Matt Pena?
That name sounds very familiar.
Yeah. He always drew a busted up car that like got sideswiped. And it was all fucked up, and he had to crawl out through the window of it. You know, it was like a fucked up. It was a hoopty, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rear of the geography and the map of the Coconino parking lot. I just picture you of being one of those kids in the rear near all the dudes with the truck nuts.
Yes.
Who like smoked cigarettes and dipped chew.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the thing was, I was very
automotives mechanic, didn't take class very seriously.
I was very good. I hated cars, so I didn't want to hear about that. I was very good at integrating with everybody. I can always find something to try and connect with somebody on,
For sure.
Regardless.
For
like
sure.
I don't care what you are. Right, and people have made these comments to me throughout my whole life, like, "Well, you're kind of racist, but why are you hanging out with that guy?" And I'm like, "Okay, because I like making jokes."
By the way, in terms of that, I do not consider you racist. You're very mild. Maybe it's because I study neo-Nazis.
Yeah,
but I don't think you're racist. I just think you're observant and
well, yeah,
and
stereotypes exist.
To your credit, you lack the disingenuous filter that most people use when talking about one another.
Yes. Yeah, if I don't like you, it's very apparent why I don't like you, right?
But it's never because demographic.
It's
you
not,
just like people
yeah.
because of their quality of character.
Their shitty attitude.
Right. No, that's what I've noticed about you.
Yeah.
The funny thing too, man, is I've known you since second grade, and it's hilarious because you're the same kid as you've always been. And in second grade, you were always really smart, but never gave a fuck.
That's worked out really good for me as an adult. Yeah, I never did give a shit. Well, I had a massive crush on our second grade student aide too, and she
One
was
of the they were called praxis teachers. They were called praxis.
I didn't
teachers.
even know what boobs were, but I knew I liked them, and I liked hers.
Is that thing still recording?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, they were called praxis teachers. They would come over from NAU. They were underpaid interns if they got paid at all. And they were part of what was called the normal school, NORML, which is the School of Education at NAU. And yeah, they basically like had to do all the paper grading and all of the shit grease work, and they didn't get paid, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
It was part of their credit. Because I remember I asked, I was like, how much money you making? They were like,
speaking of academia and its exploitation.
Yes.
Severe exploitation.
Oh my gosh. Yes, thank you. I got to write that down. Okay, so picking up where we left off, you said that you can't quite pinpoint where I am on the political spectrum. I would say I'm pretty conservative for the most part, but that I have liberal tendencies. You know, I'm creative. That's a liberal trait.
What would the others be?
So,
for instance, I mean, where do you fall on like socialized healthcare?
Openness.
Where do you find the housing?
My liberalness is like traits. Like I'm an open guy, right? Like as you said, you know, even if people say I'm racist because I make a black joke or something, I'll talk to black people all day long as they're nice and I can get along with
I've
them.
only seen you be fair with every single person.
Yeah.
regardless of the
I'm
background.
completely fair like that. I think I'm like truly liberal in that way.
Yeah.
Versus kind of like the showy types.
I also think that there, and this is going to be an incredibly controversial statement, and so for anyone who's offended by it, please just take it with a grain of salt. But I think that there is a bit of a release valve when you have the construction worker crew on the side of the road, and they're all around the tailgate, and they're taking their water break and cigarette break, and it's a few white guys, a few Puerto Rican guys, a few Mexican guys, a few black guys, a few Asian guys, whatever. And they're all kind of cracking jokes at one another. It's a little bit of a release valve that really eases ethnic tensions and is just a part of working class culture in the United States of America, which is an incredibly diverse society.
Well, that's what I've noticed. I thought it was more diverse back in the early aughts, late 90s.
Seemed that way.
You know,
and it seemed more tolerant as well.
Yeah, we were all kind of cool with everything.
For sure.
And it's gotten worse and worse.
I mean, I don't remember there being that big of an issue over so like, okay, as a precursor to the MAGA movement, you had the Tea Party movement, and we can unpack them in a moment if you would like to go down that road. But there wasn't that big of a national pushback against gay marriage, which I thought was fantastic, because really all it is a tax break. And I don't give a, first of all, marriage is a huge pain in the ass. You've been through one. And so if two folks of the same sex or whatever sex would like to enter that partnership, good luck and sign a prenup, because it kind of sucks.
Right.
You know what
I think the pushback from that now is, well, okay, what happened with the gay marriage thing was that then you had kind of like what's gone on with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
With the SPLC, the SPLC. So to unpack this,
do you know what I mean?
The
though?
SPLC has been accused of using great deals of donor money in order to infiltrate, and not just infiltrate, far right-wing organizations, but also to encourage far right-wing militancy and propaganda campaigns.
Right, and to stoke racial tensions because the supply is not meeting the demand.
So really quickly, I have to say this. Yeah. I had a professor who's now dead. He was a naval intelligence officer, and his name was Michael Corrigan, Ensign Michael Corrigan. And he said, I've only heard of one NGO that ever completed its mission and packed up. And it was an NGO that wanted to get a personal computer or personal computing device, which to this day would include your smartwatch or phone, inside of 80% of the homes of America. When they achieved that, they actually shuttered their doors and packed up. He's like, outside of that, NGOs, 501c3s, nonprofits are going to continue to do whatever they can to keep their fucking mission going.
Because why? It's an economic thing, right?
There's still profit-driven institutions.
Right. People do not understand the idea of a nonprofit organization, right? They just don't. They think, oh, it's nonprofit. It's good. It's like a charity.
No, it's horseshit.
No, it's
horseshit.
all it means is that there's a board of people.
One should be incredibly skeptical of any 501c3 or NGO to which they give their money.
Right. People forget the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar business in the industry.
Talking about the National Football League?
Yes, the NFL.
Yeah.
And that is a nonprofit. They are not taxed
because get out of here.
Because it is a conglomeration of 32 owners.
Fuck that.
It is a conglomeration of 32 owners. So you don't. I pay my taxes as an owner. I don't need my entire business.
Perfect example.
It's an umbrella. Yes, thank you. Okay, and I don't mind that because the NFL is very open about that. Right? They're like, we know exactly what we're doing, and they're good for the business of America. Right? It's one of the biggest exports right now that America has. So whatever. The problem is that, like, when you have LGBT, Southern Poverty Law Center, all these other kinds of groups that are kind of politically active and motivated and whatever, and as they try to push...
The ADL. Right.
All these things, as they're trying to push whatever it is their main goal is, and if they actually get it across the line like the LGBT did, then they have to start rooting around for other stuff.
The SPLC did.
Oh, well, no, we originally started by the LGBT. right? We were
What is
talking
it-
about
what-
the gay marriage and how they need to stay over. I think the reason that people started to turn against that was because then they brought in the transgenderism stuff.
Well, all right, no. It was largely religiously driven, and you did have like something like the Southern Borough Baptist Church and these really, I'm going to say racist and oppressive organizations who had a very big lobby inside George W. Bush Jr.'s
Yeah.
administration. And they had a very big pull there. I mean, he was a Texas politician, and the Southborough Baptist Church and organizations adjacent to them really pulled a lot of strings. And then later on, the Tea Party movement, which was made up by a lot of identitarian Christian Zionists, and they really put their thumb on the scales of this. As an average dude, to me, dude, marry who you love. I don't give a shit. It does not bother me. It's basically a tax cut, is what it is.
Okay, so
Who
that's what
gives a
I'm saying.
fuck?
The backlash though is because those groups started pushing more and more and more, right? That's why there's such a backlash now. We're even
Turned
seeing it now with
into-
the race
What
stuff.
got insane, and so like, all right, on one extreme, you'll hear like some guy from like fucking North Carolina will be like, they put a litter box in my son's bathroom so that this trans cat girl can go take a piss in it or whatever, and like you'll hear shit like that at parent teacher conferences. I don't know how real that is. I also don't have data on it, and it's also not something that I care to research personally because it's gross.
Right.
There's that. If that's actually happening, that's extreme. I don't think that's that big of an effing issue.
Well, but we
What's
do know
crazy-
about the transport stuff.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about how these groups and the extreme backlash coming back on them, right? So even like the problem is that with these nonprofits, once they obtain their goal, they don't shutter. They stay open, and they need to push something new. So
Yeah,
they start
right.
getting more and more extreme,
Right.
And then
It's a
the
part of the model.
pushback, becomes more and more extreme. I think most Americans were like you; they didn't really care about gays getting married.
No.
Now it's more of an issue because they've seen how it's infested into more extreme things like the trans territory, transhumanism, all this other kind of stuff, bestiality.
No, the worst example
Maps.
being like a 45-year-old man who's clearly a man who hasn't completely transitioned, walking into women's restrooms and maybe being predatory while in there. How much does that occur? I don't know, but I can see it being a concern for women.
It was a concern, right? That was part of the pushback with the Trump stuff, right? One of the most effective ads that we know he had was the giving inmates trans surgery and stuff like that with taxpayer dollars,
Which is insane. So you don't, for instance, and this is a very Joe Rogan point, and I hate to reiterate anything that moron says, but do you want a 250-pound muscle-bound male who identifies as a female in the same correctional institution as a bunch of women, and they might also have a violent history? Like
Yes.
that just seems like a really bad.
or like
Fucking.
castrating kids,
Well, that's so we haven't. All right, so teens are not allowed to get pierced or tattooed until they're 18, right? And we know that the brain doesn't develop until it's 24.
Yeah.
I think that kiddos should be allowed to explore and do their thing and be themselves and not be discouraged, and that parents need to be understanding and be open. But should we start pumping them full of chemicals and then start doing surgeries on anyone before the age of 18? No, I
Right.
think it should be like the tattoo law. Like you should be 18 before you can start
You
getting
make
a
it
septum
permanent.
piercing or a fucking
Or cut your tits off.
whatever it might be, man. Whatever it
Yeah.
might be, I think a person
Well,
should
here's
be
the
an
other
adult
thing.
before-
I think the issue with I didn't want to get into the trans stuff, but I think the issue again was it got so extreme. Is it a reality that you will ever transition?
I can't say. I don't have any of the data. I don't.
Well,
know
no,
enough
you
of the
know
people
you
in that
can
community.
say because you have to. If you wanted to become a woman, you would have to mutilate your cock.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to go
And
through
would
the
it
full
be a
surgical-
vagina?
If I wanted to go through genital surgery, if I wanted to go through genital surgery, and I wanted to go through all of that, yeah, I mean, it would be a huge life
That's a
decision.
very materialist point of view of like, well, skin and whatever. You know, it's not really a vagina though. At the end of the day, it doesn't function like a vagina, doesn't act like a vagina.
Again,
It's
this
kind
is
of putting
this
a
is way
pig in
outside of my
lipstick.
realm of knowledge. I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know anything about any of this. Like
But I'm saying, well, okay, but the point is, well, this is what was happening. though.
Can we use somebody who is all right, so that I have a point of reference,
Right.
And with treating everyone with respect and being completely respectful, can we use, for instance, Caitlyn Jenner as an example, right?
Yes.
Did that person actually transition fully into a female? So like their
No.
genitals have now, or do they still have the bits that you and I do?
That's the problem with transgenderism.
Well, I don't know actually.
Well, no. As far as I know, he has had the surgery.
So what? So if it doesn't function as a vagina, this is such a fucked up conversation for me because it's so outside of my realm of knowledge. Like
The body will always see it as a gaping open wound. They have to put stents in it.
But
forever.
you know, is there a pleasure center? Are they still able to enjoy
Well, yeah.
it sexually? You know,
Yes.
does that still exist?
But does it function as a vagina?
Well, is the function of vagina is for childbearing?
Yes. No, it will not ever.
Yeah, I know. So that's not acceptable. But and this is an honest question, and I'm coming from a very innocent perspective, but can a male to female person who's transitioned and gone through genital surgery experience sexual joy?
No.
Really?
No.
So what is the point?
So they feel better about themselves.
I don't know.
Are you talking about like getting a
This is
penis?
way out of my pay
Are you talking
grade.
about like a woman getting a penis?
No, a man getting
Oh.
a vagina made out of his penis.
Either way, no, that's kind of that was kind
This is
of.
way above my pay grade. This is not.
But this
these are
is
not
how-
topics I touch on. This is not my expertise. I never talk about this sort of shit.
This
I'm
is
sorry.
where okay. Well, this
Never
is a
talk
good
about
point for you, like point of focus for you on kind of where I stand. Like I will talk to a trans person all day long, quote unquote. Do I believe they are actually trans? No. Will I respect their pronouns
I
in
disagree.
person? Yes. Will I respect them? Like you said, Bruce Jenner, she's a lady, and I said he's still a man. That's the point of contention. Like I'm not going to buy into their false reality.
It doesn't hurt or affect me if folks want to identify in a particular way, and if I have to do a little like mental exercise in order to get their pronouns correct, which I've had a lot of practice in, thankfully, because I've had a lot of experience in institutions that are far from progressive. They're very left wing. Yeah, that doesn't hurt me, and I'm happy to. I just want everyone to feel comfortable, and I know that's kind of a hippy-dippy way to think about things.
Yes.
Hippies are very annoying. It's a hippy-dippy way to think about things, but I just want everyone to feel comfortable, and this is the United States of America. You're allowed to be who you want to be.
The problem, I think, though, Tom, is that it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with, I want everybody to be comfortable, because at the end of the day, they're going to push you to buy into something that you don't really fully buy into.
This is where Jordan Peterson gained his fame as a nothing from Toronto, some bullshit psychologist professor. And he said, you cannot, and even in your own ideology, even in your own ideological structure, you
Right.
cannot force a person to use language that they're not willing to use.
Right.
That is a form of fascism in a sort, or a form of authoritarianism, if nothing else.
Right.
And that is where Jordan Peterson and that lecture, that de facto lecture in front of the school when he was outside, that summer of 2016, I believe it was, or 2017
Somewhere around
perhaps.
there,
That is what made him famous. And he said, you cannot force me to use a language, because it would be the same as if I were to impose a language upon you.
Right.
With that, I agree. However, not just to be like a pussy and like, not to like make people mad or whatever, but simply as a matter of respect if I can remember your pronouns, I will do my absolute best to use them.
I think the question there, though, is it respect to lie to somebody?
I don't know if it's a lie, man. Look here. Look. We live in
Okay,
a
but
fucking
you're
country.
Christian. Did God create trans people?
We live in a country. We live in a country where you have fucking Disney adults, people who are putting themselves in fucking debt.
No, you're
because they wanna go to
helping me
fucking
with my
Disney.
point.
No,
Disney adults should be shamed back to the gutters from whence they came.
So I think a much like there's not like you can be whatever the fuck you want to be, man, in America.
But how can we
as
have?
long as it doesn't harm others, and if it fucks up your credit
This
score,
is
that's
fun
fine,
because we
because
kind of
Disney adults, but
we've kind of switched from the issue of nonprofits staying open
but
for.
no, man, I will use if look.
How can you
some
be
of the
taken?
Sweetest and nicest people I've ever met in this country. This is a country where you literally came from another continent. Every single person except for first Americans, indigenous Americans, came from somewhere else, and they came here to remake themselves, whatever they want to be. And I think that's very much in the American tradition. And if a person has a particular set of pronouns and identifies a certain way, I'm going to go way out of my way to respect that, and it just doesn't.
It kind of
affect
goes
me. It
down
doesn't
to.
bother me. It doesn't bother me, man.
Well, it's not difficult to like respect the pronouns while they're there in person.
Yeah.
Right? Like while you're dealing with that person. That's not the issue. The issue is how long do you want me to go along with the lie? And how serious of a country can you be if
What is
you
the lie exactly?
Well, we know that they're not ever going to be a woman or a man.
Hey, man, I'm not the one. I'm not the one sleeping with them or dating them or doing any of that.
But
and they do have their own communities and they do their own things and they have their own codes and ethics and morals and procedures.
Scoot in a little bit.
They have their own codes and ethics and morals and procedures, and they that's their thing. It's none of my business. That's the thing is, okay, so this is, you and I were talking about libertarianism the last podcast, left-wing libertarianism and right-wing libertarianism. Right. And I think from a purely libertarianism view, to which I respect somewhat as being a frontier American. We live in Arizona, the very last state to be incorporated in the continent.
Yeah.
As long as you're not harming other people, in this case, minors, or, MINORS, or not like coal miners, or fucking, as long as you're not harming minors, as long as you're not harming other people, as long as everyone has consent,
but that's the problem
with
it. That's the problem with it. I think
you're
that's
here to make yourself be whoever you want
to
be.
If you're a parent of a child and you're forcing your kid to wear dresses and stuff like that because you wanted a daughter.
So that's okay. When parents step in and start imposing their worldviews on kids, that's fucked up. If your kid, on their own volition, comes to the point where they say, hey man, I would like to start dressing this way or that way, or I would start like to behaving this way or that way based on some sort of gender value, then let your kid be your kid, as everything, so I have a nephew.
Should you give that kid puberty blockers?
No, that's the thing. And I feel the same way as I do about like tattoos. So you have to, in this state, you have to be 21 years old to buy a pack of cigarettes.
Right.
To start altering your body and to start altering yourself chemically, I think that you need to let your brain develop. And I think that's for your own good. It's not because I have any political position against people transitioning. I just think that maybe it's something that a lot of people will end up regretting. And that in and of
the studies show that most of the kids who indulge in that kind of behavior anyway do just end up being gay.
Well, yeah, and then if you alter your body and if you alter your hormones, then we have more serious risks such as self-harm and people maybe redacting themselves or not being able to live with these life
Before
altering choices
anybody
that they
thinks
made at
that
the
I'm
age of-
some tranny hating, whatever, who has no tolerance for them. This is why I'm weird, right? I am staunchly against transgenderism. I dealt with it firsthand, very personally, very closely.
with a previous partner, or
Yeah, absolutely. And it was devastating to the person, and they have never come out of it, right? And I played along with it. I played along with it for a good chunk of time. Now, did I ever believe that he was a woman? No. But I played along with the line, the delusion, until it got to a point where it was devastatingly close to suicide, or sorry, offing yourself or whatever, self-deletion, however you have to say on YouTube.
Yeah, I say self-redaction.
Self-redaction. So, and I had a romantic relationship with this person for years, and that's why
male to female, or
yeah, I was a male to female.
Yep.
And they didn't have the genital surgery, right? This was a very young person at the time that I met them. They were 18. So, and I was like, oh my God. I said that probably too. I don't want people think like, at the middle school. They were 18. I was in my 20s. Anyway. And so that's why I do see things like whoever the LGBTQ caucus or whoever, right? They ran out of things to do once they got gay marriage across the line. And then they started pushing transgenderism. And it did have real world effects with very young people, and it mentally fucked them up. And they took advantage of people that were mentally fucked up. You're also talking about an age of kids. This guy was in particular like a Zoomer. So he was already on like 50 fucking medications, which I also don't agree with, from like a very young age.
As a disclaimer, I'm on like 4, none of them are SSRIs, but I'm like on 4 psychotropic medications to, fucking stabilize me. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a fucking shame. I mean,
well, one is an anti seizure drug. It's an anticonvulsive. And then the other 3 are all anxiety management drugs.
And you know what, Tom? Our generation was the first generation that they started really experimenting that shit on.
Yeah.
And going on with the everybody had ADHD and all this crap and dyslexia and all that. And the reality to me is that the teachers just didn't want to deal with young men. Right? Young men are full of energy and disinterested and have short attention spans.
So one of the greatest things I've ever heard is that the Western education system, either coming out of the German Frankfurter School or what we have presently in the United States, is designed for about 7% of kids who enter public school, and that 7% are for whatever reason fit to sit down, do book learning, crank out papers, do math problems, and will eventually make it on the PhD. It's like 7% of any kid that darkens the door of a public fucking elementary school.
I'm so happy you brought this up. This has something to do with the Rockefellers too. Yeah, and
well, you said you're not a conspiracy theorist. Let's hear this.
Well, no, I don't remember the exact thing, and this isn't a conspiracy theorist, but that it was part of their issue, right? The Rockefellers have had a lot to do with a lot of different things, and I wish I had more concrete details and stuff like that. They're actually one of the few families that I haven't like historically looked into. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but they also they are obviously a very influential family, have been around for thousands of years or hundreds of years, and thousands of years, maybe.
No. But they gained their prominence in the 19th century, actually, and that's when they became a very big banking family.
They also had something to do with killing Rudolph Diesel, and
wow.
Which do you know anything about him? Okay, well, Rudolph Diesel was the guy who diesel oil or diesel fuel and all that. Yeah. He was the guy who engineered that. Why are you looking at me? You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I'm leaning into the mic so that I'm close because I feel like I was too far away. I don't know where the camera is.
Anyway, he's the guy who helped perpetuate diesel fuel, oil, and technology and engines and all that during World War I. like he's a real guy.
Yeah.
And the Rockefellers, he disappeared suspiciously and mysteriously, and nobody ever found where he went or whatever. And the Rockefellers' fingerprints are all over it, and that is probably how they made most of their money.
Yeah.
So there's a good book about it. I wish I could remember the title. In fact, I will put a copy of the book. It's a historical book.
Lots of fuckery abounds.
I feel like you're looking at me skeptically.
No, I'm not at all. No, I am. I'm very sympathetic to everything you're saying. I do need to have a cigarette if you.
Okay.
Don't mind.
we'll get out of the Rockefeller lane for a minute.
Gonna have a quick cigarette if you don't mind.
All right, we just got back from a smoke break, and I just want everybody to know I'm not a huge like Rockefeller conspiracy theorist. But I do think there's something interesting about that. And going back to like the school thing, you're right. It's set up in a way to where the kids, it's kind of a one size fits all solution for education, which I don't think is the most appropriate thing for a lot of kids, unfortunately.
There's an individual I was looking up, and I'm sorry for getting on my phone, but I think his name was Yuri Bezmenov, and he was a former KGB agent who'd worked for the Soviet intelligence agency, KGB, and he went on like a 60 Minutes interview in like 1991 or 1989, somewhere around the collapse of the Soviet Union. And he was talking about the long march through the institutions.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, no, like the way we're going to take over, and like, yeah, the Soviet Union is falling now, but the way we're going to take over through Marxism and the way we designed this is that your kid, normal kid, going to go to high school, all of that, and they'll come back from that first semester at university for Thanksgiving break, and they'll start spouting some shit that you've never heard out of their mouths before, and it'll be very, very left wing, and it will target the race consciousness of the United States of America. It'll target demographic differences, and it will specifically seek to split Americans into fractured camps, fractured groups. And this will be a primary strategy of the Soviet Union soft power.
So do you see that happening?
I experienced it in university, and it got even more extreme as I was getting out. So I got my master's degree in 2017. And this is a really good anecdote. And this is one of the few personal points of my career I'm willing to speak about. So during the defense of a master's thesis, I had to talk about field work that I had done in a Syrian refugee camp. And this Syrian refugee camp existed in Izmir, Turkey. And there was a slum called Basmani in Izmir. And there was a squat that was controlled by actual hardcore communists, such hardcore communists that they had been considered illegal by the Turkish government. But the Turkish government and the gendarmerie did not have much of a presence in that neighborhood. It was a hardcore ghetto. And it was largely occupied by Kurdish communists of the PKK and also Turkish communists. And this particular squat was giving out staple foods and other goods such as women hygiene products and things like that to Syrian refugees who are fleeing that war, as long as they were willing to put their kids into this communist education camp. And what was so fucked up about it is a lot of these kids had just fled ISIS education camps. So these kids were fleeing the Islamic State and hardcore Salafi jihadism. And then they made it into Turkey, and they made it into a place they thought were safe, and they thought they were going to be there temporarily until they could get transported to Greece in the European Union, and then maybe make it to Germany or Sweden, somewhere like that. But while they were in Turkey, they had to go to this fucking like communist education camp where they were giving them a hardcore Marxist ideology. I'm not going to weigh in one way or the other on whether I think that that's appropriate, but in my thesis, I mentioned it, and the panel of professors who sat on my defense. One was a Yugoslav professor who was a diplomat who had made it out of Yugoslavia and had become a diplomat from his country of Montenegro to NATO. So he made it out of communism and experienced hardcore communism. The other one was a historian on the Cold War. And all he did was study the communist bloc, both the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union. The third was a hardcore leftist that was borrowed from as an adjunct from Harvard University. And she was like a hardcore Marxist leftist. And she starts bawling me out over the fact that in my thesis, I had even described in an objective fashion, without saying that it was negative or positive, that these communists were indoctrinating little Syrian kids who had just come out of ISIS camps. And she flips out, absolutely flips out, and says that you're a white male and you have no right to talk about informal education or refugee issues, and this is absurd. And I was like, excuse me, ma'am, I've been working in the field for 4 months in fucking UNHCR camps, and I have never seen anyone make mothers send their kids to indoctrination camps in order to receive groceries and feminine hygiene products and clothing. This is absurd. And in a very objective fashion, I noted it in my thesis. And these other two professors, one of which who had lived through communism and the other one who had spent his entire life studying communism, looked at this woman like she was out of her fucking mind. And she was from Harvard University. I will not mention the professor's name, but every single person in the room during that thesis defense who was older than my graduating class looked at her like she was fucking insane. Now, my graduating class, who was sitting there like a jury board, were all looking at me with daggers in their eyes like I was a scumbag.
Because you didn't take a side.
Well, because I said that young kids were being indoctrinated by communists in Turkey that had just fled ISIS camps, and there was something morally wrong with that. And what I said during my thesis was this: children should be educated in writing, reading, mathematics, art, sports, without the influence of either Karl Marx or Salafi jihadists or Adolf Hitler. Or anybody. This is bullshit. They're children, man. They're children. And their mothers certainly shouldn't have to be putting their kids into these Marxist camps in order to receive groceries and hygiene products and staples. And so when I mentioned that during my master's thesis, and this is in December of 2017, this one professor who was adjunct from Harvard pushed back so hard, and she was such a hardcore Marxist that like I was made to look like I was a fucking bad guy. And she's like, here, this is her direct quote: "How can you as a white male weigh in on informal education in any way?" And like these two, this Yugoslav professor and this other old guy who'd studied the Soviet Union forever looked at her like she was fucking insane, dude.
Right. Okay. Perfect. I love this story because this is why I like having you on, Tom. We hit like a million different topics.
Yeah.
This is the problem, right? Everything is too overreactional, overcorrectional, and ideological. Everything is like. Do you agree with that kind of sentiment? Like that everything right now is to one way or the other, and
I would say it's chilled out, and it reaches peaks and valleys.
I don't think it's chilled
during
out.
2020, it was really fucking intense. During 2018, it was very, very fucking intense.
See, I don't think it is. This is kind of what I was trying to get at with the Putin thing earlier, is that now instead of kind of seeing things as they are, right? Which is like, we don't need to glaze Putin. We don't need to have a problem with Putin.
He's not perfect, but he's
He
Putin
is
a Russian. He's a Russian. Russia is
Right,
always
right,
going to
right.
be ruled by a Russian.
Right. And I understand exactly what Putin's doing and why he's doing it. Is he corrupt? Does he do corrupt things?
He's a
Yes.
fucking Russian. He's a fucking Russian.
Yes.
Russia's going to be ruled by a Russian.
Right,
Let it be.
right.
Let it be.
But there is an issue with him in particular right now where it's like overly demonizing him or overly glazing him. And it's like, let's just look at the map for what it is, right? Like, me and you work at a place, right? We know exactly what it is. It's a truck stop, okay?
Right.
Again, this is kind of like putting a pig in lipstick, which I use for the other thing. But it's like, why can't we just call something what it is? Which is, because I get it all the time, Tom. People go, oh, it's a very luxurious truck stop, and it's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, it's a fucking truck stop. Okay, at the end of the day,
we sell cigarettes, beef jerky, and dirty old diesel gas.
Yeah. Right? And then and I see it going on in politics all the time where it's like, where you're just making a point about, like, I don't think kids should be going from this situation to this situation, and somebody's getting upset with you about it. And it's like, okay, I'm just making a basic commentary. I don't need you to throw your whole ass worldview and get crazy, overly angry about it, right?
No. Isn't that okay? Really quickly though,
Yeah.
Isn't that objectively a bad thing? Again, taking kids who've just come out of an ISIS camp and then re-educating them in another extremist. All right, let's not.
They don't say it
extremist,
extreme, but
in
it is
another radical politic. Kids shouldn't be indoctrinated in anything. Just let them learn math, reading, writing, sport, and art. Just let kids be kids. So I noted this, and I did so in the most objective fashion. And
okay, well, this is interesting too. Let's make it more personal. Let's bring it down to a more personal level. Right. I was raised in the church, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you were not.
So I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and I found it repugnant because, like, there would be like rock shows and all of these other
like the music
irreverent. There'd be like a lot of irreverent bullshit going on, and then people throwing their hands up into the sky and be like, "Oh God, is an awesome
very
God, oh Lord."
Yeah, it's very showy.
And then they'd pass the basket for Israel, and I was just like, "Fuck this! This is bullshit." And then I had my punk rock phase and my kind of anarchist phase,
right?
But I always felt an intense reverence, not just for the Christ, but for all religious institutions. So anytime I was in Turkey and I was near a mosque, I would always show the greatest of deference to that mosque. Anytime I'm near a synagogue, I show the greatest of deference to that synagogue. Anytime I'm near a church, except for some of these like mega Protestant churches, but like I'm saying old Catholic churches, old Orthodox churches, I show tremendous deference to these are holy sites. These are important places. And it was while working with the refugee community, who were devout, mostly Sunni Muslim Syrians, and they had their rights. And part of my time with them was during Ramadan, and
right.
I was trying to rediscover my own Christianity. So the nearest churches would all be Greek Orthodox churches in Greece or in Turkey or in Serbia. And I would end up, or in Bosnia, and I would end up in these Greek Orthodox churches, and I wouldn't understand the liturgy because it would be in Koine Greek, which is Byzantine Greek, medieval Greek. But I would just feel a spiritual pull and a spiritual impulse. And I would light my candle, and I would venerate the icons. I was not allowed to take communion because I had not been chrismated yet. But no, I just came to it that way. And since a young kid, I've always understood the Christ, same as the Buddha, or whomever, or as Muhammad.
I don't like the Buddha.
To be an important figure and an important, the teachings of Christ.
I gotta say this. I don't like the Buddha. I think gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins.
The teachings of the Christ.
I find fat people repugnant. No,
the teachings of the Christ to me are perfection. So whether like I be in traffic and like getting petty with somebody because they're driving like shit, or whether it's someone who's in need, or my service work, that being volunteering at the Flagstaff Family Food Center or whatever. I try to guide my life by the Christ as best as I can, but I am incredibly imperfect and I have a lot of fucked up flaws. But the closest thing I've found to my imagination of what the church should be is the Greek Orthodox Church.
Yes. Okay. And then so in that, okay, so let me boil it back down. I want Tom likes to go big broad.
Sorry.
Big broad spectrum. Let's boil it back down to us. Being that you are Greek Orthodox, I thought you said that you didn't grow up in the church that much. Like you weren't like a weekly kid.
I was very involved in the Southern Baptist Church as a young kid, in youth groups and Bible study groups and all that.
And then you fell out of it, and then you came back.
I always liked the idea of the Christ, and I always liked what was cool about the Southern Baptists was that they really went into the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they studied them very closely, and they'd break them down for you in their Bible study groups. But their interpretations and analyses of them were always kind of fucked, in my opinion. And so I always believed in the Christ, even when I was kind of, far left-wing anarchist and all that. I never rejected the Christ ever in my life.
Did you think I did?
That's fine, man.
I got into a weird atheism stage, in my late teens.
I never
early
had
20s.
one of those, and I always felt like I was a loser because, like, the hip thing to do was be an atheist.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like a trendy thing. I never felt anything going to church for years and years and years on end. And then once I got out of it, I felt comfortable enough finally saying, like, I don't really believe in any of it.
I think it's walking some of those ancient ass churches in Greece and Turkey, especially in Thessaloniki, the third the Agios Dimitrios,
Right.
Saint Dimitri. It's so darned old, and you're like, people have been coming here, and it wasn't just Greek Orthodox. So the interesting thing about the Ottoman Empire was that, you're controlled by the Muslim Turks, but there was a lot of, churches throughout, both Catholic and Orthodox, but then also a lot of mosques and a lot of synagogues. But if you were like, let's say, a northern Greek peasant and your kid was sick and you just needed a blessing from a Holy Father, you wouldn't care if it was a Muslim imam or a Greek Orthodox priest. You just go to the nearest holy place you could find. And
Right.
that's what was important to you.
Well, at the end of the day, there's a very real possibility we're all worshiping the same God, but just fighting on different planes.
It's stupid. It's stupid. The Abrahamic religions should not be fighting one another. It's absurd. Well, no one should be fighting one another. I'm very anti-war, and I'm not a hippie. I understand war is a tool of statecraft, and I respect that. But and war is a politics by other means, for sure. I understand that. And the Clausewitz,
It's kind of a necessary evil of a fallen world.
as Karl von Clausewitz said, war is politics by other means.
Yeah.
So diplomacy breaks down, and you end up using force.
Well, we see that in our own lives. We do.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
we
do,
go
yeah.
to war with our own families. We, obviously, we have laws and stuff like that restrict us from killing each other, but not always. And so I think that's like a real point. We see that we can be petty over the dumbest of things, or get jealous over a little whatever, envious, all that kind of stuff. It's in human nature. So the idea
We also flex our
war's
we
never
also-
gonna
we also-
not be around.
We also, have the need to, expend and exercise our will, and that's
Right.
a great point of the ego. But alpha types, sigma types, whomever, have this need to exert and expend their will. And I'm not saying that's such a great thing. I think you and I were talking about the miniseries on Netflix of Lord of the Flies, and how it's very interesting that like the choral boys, the choir, ends up becoming the fascist camp,
Right.
that like paints their faces and hunts the pigs, and they take over the hunting. And one of the interesting miscarriages of power and legitimacy that Ralph makes. So Ralph is elected chief, and Ralph is the friend of Piggy in the very beginning, but Ralph is clearly overwhelmed by the choir boys and Jack. Jack is the leader of the choir boys, who can famously sing in C sharp. That's a very big thing for a choir boy. And so Jack is tasked with not only maintaining the signal fire, to keep signal fire out, to alert whomever that they might be rescued, but also with the hunting of the pigs. Basically what he does is he gives over the monopoly of violence to Jack. He creates a police force or a militia or a paramilitary out of the hunting force,
Right.
and does not himself take direct control over it. And it's a huge miscarriage of power and legitimacy, and it comes up to bite him in the ass, because the hunter crew, the choir boys, of course, form their own feral camp that is at odds with the less hostile kids who are building huts and privies and things like that.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to think of where I want to go with this.
Sorry, I go all
No,
over the
no,
place,
no.
but
I'm
scattershot,
just
so-
saying. It's not that you're scattershot. There's so much to take in. I think a lot of it. You're making the point that war is kind of inevitable. People will create factions, and
There needs to be, so to use the term of Hobbes, there is going to be a monopoly on violence. And so the way that society organizes itself, or has organized itself, in the anarchic way, with a lowercase a tribe of well-armed human beings can get a very large slice of the pie if
Right.
they are incredibly savage and violent, and they hold it down, and they give no quarter to anyone else, and they're not cooperative. However, a more secure slice of the pie is going to be smaller, but you're going to have to cooperate with other human beings, and you're going to have some sort of order and structure. Whether that's top-down, as in vertical, or horizontal, is up to that particular society. It typically ends up being vertical.
Mm-hmm. So let me see here. I'm trying to. See, because I'm trying to bring it back to a more personal thing, right? So, with the violence and whatnot that we experience and whatnot, we as a society have figured out how to mostly live without it, right? A majority of us don't deal with violence on a day-to-day basis,
Sure.
even though we have a guttural instinct maybe for it. I certainly do.
Right. You can see that in our film and our popular culture and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and film's a great example of that. People like Quentin Tarantino have famously been attacked for the amount of violence shown in their movies, things like that.
And whether that's cathartic or
It is
whatever.
cathartic. We like watching it. One of my favorite movies right now is, or film franchises right now, is Terrifier, and I like watching the gore. I think it's fun and whatever.
But what you're saying
like
is
an
that
outlet.
we live in what you were getting at is that we live in a relatively far more secure society than we did in the Middle Ages, for example, or in the Dark Ages or whatever.
Yes, but there seems to be an urge to go back out of. We seem to be so bored and safe and secure that we're trying to almost cause disruption.
What is incredibly fragile are structures and power and legitimacy. And so, you can see that with the interesting thing about Iran is that it's so dug in. So we thought that we could decapitate the IRGC and the Ayatollahs by killing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now his son Mojtaba Khamenei, whatever health he might be in, he's in hiding right now, and we know that he was injured during that IAF.
Is he the
US
gay
attack. No, that guy's. I think you're thinking of the Sultan of Oman, but
I just remember Trump saying, "We're pretty sure he's gay. He might be gay. I think he's gay."
maybe because he doesn't have any sons that are declared. But anyways, the IRGC is interesting because it's dug in like a tick, down to the non-commissioned officer level. This is not the case with some others. What are we talking about? Decapitation here.
Of Iran?
Well,
or what were you wanting to get to?
You had a topic that you were talking about, and I was using this as an example.
Well, yeah, because I was just talking about we seem to want to deconstruct everything right now. We're in a very deconstructionist society. We're on violence.
What I was pointing out is the fragility of a lot of Western societal structures that do not exist in the East. So the IRGC has been very resilient, and they're amazing. In the West, all right, let's talk about America. America seems to be teetering on the edge of lacking legitimacy in terms of power, as is constituted in the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency.
Right.
And I've mentioned on the previous podcast what I call the spoils system democracy. This is where every single administration, the civil servants get completely wiped out and replaced by brand new ones. Policy gets flip-flopped. It's a complete seesaw of policy and positions, and there's no consistency in it. And it happens every 4 years. That kind of seems to be where the U.S. is heading, and there seems to be a vacuum of legitimate power.
Right. Great. This is kind of what I was getting at earlier. So when we're talking about, because I was trying to get at it from kind of a religious aspect, but the legitimacy of power and the vacuum of power, and you said that you thought that things have kind of tampered down from the extremes. And I don't think that.
No, I think there's plenty of kindling for it to get hot again. We just have yet to have an event such as the George Floyd killing or something like that.
I guess what I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying to make this more personal, less broad, but what are we doing, like you personally as a citizen, what are you doing that is grounded in your religious beliefs, which are foundational to America, right? We agree on that. Christianity is a foundational belief of America.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't see people using that in their own lives. People are almost like you said, terminally online, overwrought and everything going on, but what's going on in their own lives. How do you see you being able to make a difference in your own personal life? And you kind of mentioned this earlier. There's that idea of like, well, you're just a white man. Like, how dare you? Like, that's such a broad stroke to paint with somebody that she was personally talking to, right? She's talking to Tom Lord, the student at the time, and she's painting this broad brush of Tom the white man, this theoretical, opposing Iron Fist, who's oppressed black people for hundreds and hundreds of years and has never given up the grip. You've never owned a slave. You've never done anything, right? That's ridiculous.
I've forgotten completely.
That's completely ridiculous. You had nothing to do with any of that, but here she is kind of subjecting you to a worldview that you don't even have. She's not even getting to know you personally or what you actually think or feel. And I see that going on everywhere. And it's like I said, it's almost like a reframing of everything. And like, how do you think we can make it a more personal thing and less of a broad thing?
So to steal a phrase, and there are a lot of platitudes that are passed around in Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. But one of those that is quite useful is keep your side of the street clean. So in attending church and in taking communion every single Sunday, I take it very seriously, and I just attend every single Sunday. And the Catholics confess on Wednesdays. We confess and go to Vespers on Saturdays. But this is the same ritual. And I go to confession, and I admit my sins. My sins are all to do with substance abuse. I drink, and have issues with that.
Mine would totally be, Father, I whacked off again.
No, mine are to do with the alcohol, man. And so I have to confess about that. And and I go to liturgy, and I put money in the basket. I tithe in accordance to what I make with my paycheck, and I light candles for people that I think are in need, and I say prayers for people I think that are in need.
Right.
And also, the biggest thing is that I don't proselytize. So, my partner is a Marxist and has really, really good arguments for why they are a Marxist and what their worldview is and how they have developed that worldview. And I love this person more than anything in the entire world. They and I will never be able to get married because I can't get married outside of my church. And I would never want to push my version of Christ or my version of my religion on them. I just assume they have a higher power of some kind and that they're cool with it. And that if, this is one of the mystical aspects of Orthodox Christianity or Greek Orthodoxy. And when people hear Orthodox, they think of the Orthodox Jews, so they expect us to be like the hard right of the hard right of the hard right. We're not. We're very mystical and we're very Eastern. We're centered in Constantinople or Istanbul, and if our version of heaven does not include my Marxist commie girlfriend, then I don't want to go there, man. So I have a pretty open.
Is she believe?
And I think,
or in anything?
She is.
I think for you, Tom, I think that is more
spiritual.
I think that's more of a practical issue.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's a spiritual thing. I think it's more of a practical issue. And while you may love her with all your heart and whatnot, eventually down the road that may cause actual issues in your relationship that might cause you to sour on relationships in general.
I don't think so, man.
Right?
I love her a lot.
Well, I understand that. Or you might completely change your beliefs to go with her, right? That's usually what happens. One person usually chooses the other,
that's the thing,
or
and that's
there's
what I was
like
trying
a
to
huge
highlight is that
kerfuffle.
No. What I was trying to highlight is that the Orthodox Church doesn't really care about conversion, and we don't really care what your faith is. I would never try to.
That's what I'm saying. It's more of a practical issue.
I would never try to convert you, Anthony, to Orthodox Christianity. I find proselytism repugnant, actually.
Right. But foundationally, if you just bend to everything that she foundationally believes, then you guys will never have a problem. If you don't have solid foundational beliefs that she would never have to even think about bending over with, then you guys, won't have a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we
Am I making sense?
We coexist in all the right ways, and where it counts, we share the same values, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's all a relationship is foundational values.
Right.
Like, if you're a hardcore conservative who's not open-minded to the idea of Marxism, you guys will not work out, period.
But I am. I actually find Marxists fascinating. They're interesting to me.
Yeah, and so then that might work out for you because you're open enough in that trait that you're going to be able to find a way to continue, right?
Right.
Whereas somebody like, my fiance and some crazy like purple-haired leftists are just never going to see eye to eye because the foundational difference are just too far apart.
Yeah.
And she's not open enough to want to bend to that, and God knows a leftist is never open enough to do anything. Yeah. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does, yeah.
And
sure.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with proselytization or proselytizing.
Yeah, you hit it though.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's It's a matter of, well, God does want you to do that, right? He wants you to go out and say that, he wants you
They
to
do
go
say,
out.
especially in like the book of John and all that, like go out and spread the word. But you know what, man? Our attitude in the Greek Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox churches, the door's open if you want to come in, but no one's gonna go out of their way to fucking invite you. You know what I mean?
Right. My issue with that attitude, though, is that I have an open door for a lot of stuff, and nobody ever comes through it.
That's why we're a very small church.
You have to kind of, like, what's the incentive for me to go through that door, right? I've been raised with stranger danger, so I don't go into just any door.
In my case, and this is true, dude, I had been in a refugee camp, and I saw a guy stab himself in the stomach.
Right.
And hemorrhage all over me. And first of all, I thought it was had exposure for HIV. So I was really freaked out by that. Got tested. And then I ran to the nearest church that Sunday. It was on a Saturday. And that Sunday, I ran to the nearest church. It was Agios Dimitrios in the Anopoli, the old city of Thessaloniki, Greece. And I just ran to a church, and I didn't know what was being said. I didn't understand the liturgy, but I don't
You
know.
found comfort in it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. That's good. I mean, good for you. That's great. So you just kind of ran to it your own.
That's right. Yeah, no one ever came and converted me.
Would you have hated it if they did?
Yeah, I would have.
Even now?
Yeah, but I have a certain issue with authority. So
Okay,
sure.
well,
Yeah.
so here, maybe this is my issue. If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Tom, I think that's a really interesting cross on your neck. Tell me about it." And I'm kind of going through some spiritual stuff. Maybe I'd like to know more about your church. Are you gonna kind of be like, I don't want to say flamboyant with it, but like, are you gonna be like, well, we just do this, that, and not really try and convert them? Or are you gonna be like, oh, this person actually has a general interest in it?
No, what I do is I would just invite them to liturgy, and if they can literally stand on their feet for an hour and 15 minutes during a fucking Greek Orthodox liturgy, and deal with all of the incense and the bowing and the crossing yourself and all of the ritual and all of that nonsense and the indideron and all of that, and keep coming back. But the experience will turn most people off.
But do you like that they're turned off by it? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
I don't. Like I said, the door's open, but I have no vested interest in converting anybody to my faith. Doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit. Look, if heaven doesn't have space for Anthony Tafoya, I don't want to go to that heaven. Fuck it.
Yeah. I don't want to go to hell, though, either.
No one does.
Whatever hell is. I mean, I can't imagine it's any worse than like what we're dealing with right now. But
well, so we were talking, my uncle-in-law and I were talking about Gnosticism, and this is really fascinating. The idea, and this is from the Nag Hammadi texts, which are the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Nag Hammadi texts discuss this idea of God and then the Archon, and the Archon is the creator. And the Archon, if you think about mitosis, when two cells split from one another, two prokaryotic cells split, or two eukaryotic cells split from one another, they split, and so you had God, and then something split from it called the Archon, and the Archon created Earth, which is a hell planet, and we are presently trapped on hell. And God, who did not create Earth, sent what is not called Jesus, but what is called the Son in the Gnostic texts, to Earth. And the purpose of the Son, which you might think of as Jesus, was to remind humanity that we are trapped on a hell planet. We need to be as nice to one another as we can, and that heaven and the kingdom of heaven awaits. And that's like the Gnostic Christian understanding of things. So we did discuss this. This is interesting that you brought it up.
So this is interesting too, because this is what I think. I think hell is a little bit of what we're dealing with right now, right?
Yeah, that's what the Gnostics
having
was
to
saying.
Tolerate all the nonsense that we find annoying and repugnant and whatever. And I also think hell could be a reality, right? Like
Yes.
when you die, your soul's tortured or whatever, butt fucked by Pinhead or whatever the idea. I have no idea. Maybe hell for me is like, ringing up Funyuns to fat guys for the rest for eternity. So, that would be awful. But
Kicking dill pickle corn nuts.
yeah.
Dill pickle corn nuts.
Yeah. So, I mean, that could be hell for me. But I also think part of hell right now for a lot of people, and I guess this is what I've been trying to get to, and I really want to get into like why you don't want to proselytize to people. But I do want to know why young men in particular, right? We were talking about the broad stroke of young men being angry and whatever and things like that. I see an issue with young men not taking control of their lives in any kind of real fruitful way that would benefit them, and then just complaining about their circumstances, right?
I don't have a good enough data set or sample size to weigh in on that.
Okay, but I'll give you an example.
I don't think that I understand Gen Z or Gen Alpha, as they're now called. I don't think I understand the middle, or not Gen Alpha. What the fuck is it? It's Gen.
I've been hanging out with a lot
Or
of Gen Alpha.
Sigma, or Gen Alpha, whatever.
Alpha's coming up, yeah.
Yeah, Alpha.
They're the ones getting ready to graduate.
I don't understand either of them. And I have two nephews who are of that age, and their influences are so fucking strange to me.
You're millennial.
I was born
We're
in 1988. Yeah, I was born.
I think my brother, who's 3 years older than me, I think he's considered the last of Gen X. Right?
Gen X ended at like 79.
85?
79.
Because my first wife always said she was Gen X.
Millennials begin at like 81.
Okay, well, regardless, there's
X
kind of a weird overlap.
Gen X ends at like 80, 79.
Okay.
There is some. My brother was born in 83. He has more Gen X qualities and more analog qualities than does a millennial. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to use him as an example, and God bless you if you're watching, but I know you're not. But my brother. He doesn't watch shit. Anyway.
Chadwick, if you're watching, hello, man.
You bitch.
We love you.
I'm going to use him, and he's probably going to get mad. He's probably going to get mad. But
we love you, buddy.
Chad is a perpetually angry person
Okay.
who blames the world for all of his issues and never says anything about what he does. Right? I see that going on with now young people who have all of the enrichment of their parents by their side, and a fresh mother's nipple constantly there for them to always suckle on.
Sure.
And they're still bitching that they can't move on with their lives. And I see that as a real issue.
Right.
And I see a lot of, because I've been hanging out with a lot of young college guys and stuff like that. There is a lot of weird, like, Jew hatred and stuff like that. Like, Israel's out to get me, even though they've never met a Jew in their life, especially here in Flagstaff.
On both the left and on both the left and the right. That is the anti-Semitism, hatred of quote unquote global Jewry, and then anti-Zionism. All three of which could be decategorized from one another. That's growing.
Okay, I'm going to use Trump as a catalyst. I don't want to get into like a huge political discussion. I'm going to use Trump as a catalyst for two examples. Okay. Trump just told Iran, their people, 7-8 weeks ago, however long ago this war started, he said, this is going to be your opportunity to stand up and do something. They've done nothing, right? When Trump was elected in 2024, this was our opportunity to do something. We're doing nothing, right? Instead, people in general, Americans in general, as far as I can tell, are kind of just sitting and pissing and moaning about the way things are, but not doing anything other than comfortably doing the same routine day in and day out.
I don't understand.
Does that make sense?
I don't understand the Iran example.
What I'm saying is that when Trump was elected, there was the great white hope. Trump was elected, America first, this is our chance to do something, and we're all just waiting for politicians that we know are not going to do anything to do something. The thing with Iran is he said, we're going to come in. You people were out there in December and you guys got shot up by your fucking government. We're going to come in and bomb the shit out of them. and we're going to do all this stuff.
It wasn't
Now's
that
your
many-
time to rise
It
up.
wasn't that many who got shot, and also all of the intelligence analysts who thought that anyone was going to rise up and make a meaningful change in Iran were fucking retarded.
Okay,
Everyone who knew that country and that country's landscape knew that the U.S. coming in, or any imperial power coming in and bombing Iran, was only going to consolidate those people's.
But my point is when are we going to take control of our lives and quit waiting on politicians? Are you waiting on your mom to give you a house right now?
Are you asking me?
Because I'm not. I'm not waiting on my mom to give me a house. I know she's not going to give me a house. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, we're given the best opportunity with this one president, but the president is not going to affect everything.
I don't want to be black-pilled, but personally, I would be surprised if I didn't die of colorectal cancer by the age of 45.
Right.
So I'm not really planning that far ahead into the future.
But why aren't we? Okay, we always look at the politicians for everything.
Right,
this is the main point I'm trying to make. We're always looking at politicians to change certain things. And yes, we do need them to change certain things. And we could effectuate that. Most people just sit around screaming into the ether on the internet, right?
Sure.
Fucking Ted Cruz ain't listening to me. Whatever it is, right? Whatever.
Right. Shouting at Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. Or Tucker or whoever you like. And this fucking piece of shit, right? Like, this is not the person who is going. We're like dumb ass dogs chasing a semi. Like,
It is.
we need to change. And Tom, and I'm telling you this from personal experience.
Yeah.
It's corporations. I like capitalism. Okay. Corporations, though, are a big issue for why we are not succeeding. Right. And I'm not into Marxism. I don't want to know that.
I have a quick fucking spiel on corporations.
Right.
They do the heavy lifting that smaller organizations cannot do.
Right.
So you want to build advanced fucking missiles? Okay. Good luck, socialist. With your fucking what is there going to be a people's manufacturing of smart fucking weapons, or fucking long range fucking or short range or standoff weapons? No,
right.
Not just that, but other
Silly.
things like AI, for instance,
Yeah.
and all of that. And you need venture capital and you need things like
Yes.
that. I'm too stupid economically to know where to strike the ground, but I am smart enough to know that there is RAPE and pillaging, and that we're getting fucked, and that there really is emerging a oligarchy of techno-capitalists that should worry
And why?
everyone on both
And
the
why?
left and the right.
And why?
Well,
And why, Tom? Because every single one of us dumb motherfuckers hits I agree at the end of that fucking
for sure.
10-page paragraph
Right.
of lawyer speak that nobody understands. We hit I agree. And every time we are signing legally signing away our rights and knowledge of whatever they're doing with our data, our dialogue, all of our they fucking track us now for target ads. It's crazy.
fucked.
But we have given that away, and then people, because we're comfortable and we don't like to be moved too much, right? Because we're Americans, we don't. We let bad corporations take advantage of us. We can't even get, like, we're not a union, but you don't need a union to strike.
No.
But people go, well, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know.
No.
It's like, well, I'm not asking you to murder somebody. I just need you to not show up to work tomorrow. Right. Yeah. And we're all going to stand outside and say why. And we're going to watch them flounder. And we're going to push bad business on, or we're going to impact their business in a way to where nobody's going to want to stop here, or whatever it is, right? But we don't do that anymore because we got to pay for our Netflix subscription.
Right.
So we're sitting over here going like, fucking goddamn Tucker Carlson saying that shit, and fucking Ben Shapiro, that Jew, and fucking Israel.
Yes.
But wait, where's my Amazon Prime?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm saying, like on a more practical level. And that's why I was trying to get at with the religious thing. This all sounds probably super cluttered and fucked up, but the religious thing is
my
like,
mind works. It's fine.
like with you and me, like I'm taking my lead from a more Christian foundation. And how am I supposed to do this? And And what battle should I choose as a Christian guy or a guy who sees himself as a Christian guy? Which one should I see that I should fight in the political sphere, and which one should I actually fight in my real life, right? And why am I giving more?
I think one should just read the Gospels,
Right,
and read the life of the Christ and study how he behaved in certain situations.
But there are things in the Old Testament that are incredibly powerful.
Sure.
And moving on, I mean, the story of Exodus.
I think the Old Testament is more interesting as a person who studies conflict and armed conflict,
right?
And murder and history and disaster and things like that. The Old Testament's a little sexier, but the Gospels are what you should read, and that's where you should take your cue.
Exodus, though, is a huge foundational portion of our country.
It is.
The story of Moses is a wonderful story, because it lives on forever and ever. As it's so human. We will let ourselves be slaves. Look at the Jews in the desert, roaming on, bitching, saying that they want to go back to being slaves because they're tired of walking, And I'm seeing a little bit of that in America right now. Do you feel that? Do you see that? Or what do you think I'm saying? What do you think of what I'm saying?
I don't know. I'm not going to give you a satisfying answer on that. I can't say.
Am I just kind of rambling on like a moron?
No, but it does make sense in that it is a political desert, and it's also a desert of cohesion and identity. The American identity is being challenged. This was clearly a WASP country when it was developed. It was a very big deal when John F. Kennedy, a Catholic, became president of the United States of America. It was a huge rupture and upset to the stat quo. That fucked things up. Today, and Joe Biden was a Catholic, not a big deal. No one even gave a shit about that. He would go and pray at St. Matthew's in Washington, D.C. on the northwest side all the time, and no one gave a shit about that. But it was a very big deal in 1960 when a Catholic became president of this country. So this was a WASP country by its foundation, but that is not to exclude the input of Black America, which I will not call African America. I will call Black America. These are people who had their identity, culture, and language erased, replaced by something else, and they created their own identity, and it's unique to America, and they have as much skin in the game as any other major identity group in America. The same is true with Mexican Americans and First Americans, Indigenous Americans. But no, America, at least institutionally, is very much a WASP country, or has been founded upon that, and that foundation is being challenged for better or worse. I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. Perhaps it's a more equitable thing, and it could be very good. But those old WASP values, those old WASP, what would one say? Favoritisms and other such kickbacks and pork bellies and earmarks are very much being challenged, erased, and redistributed. And I can't say that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe it's for the best. I don't know.
What do you at heart think it is for?
On a personal level, I think there does need to be some redistribution and some, I think there needs to be some reckoning and all of that. But what it would look like, I don't know, and I also don't have enough of an economic brain to unpack what reparations, for instance, would look like, or who deserves what, or who qualifies for what. Do you have to?
But why would we give reparations for people? Are you talking like slavery?
I was just using that as an example. Don't get hung up on that. Don't get hung up on that. But it would just be a hard thing to do, and so I think there's a lot of inequality in this country. It cuts across class, and across race. Well, it doesn't cut across class. It cuts across race, It's worse for some than others. There are a lot of structural issues. But this is really outside of my wheelhouse and not something that I'm accustomed to talking about, actually.
Well, I didn't mean to like spawn it on you, but I do see. Listen, I think I've been treated pretty unfairly, and I do think that there's a lot of elitism in the country and corporatization of things and whatever. And I think we need to get money out of government and all that. But I'd rather die poor and starving than be given somebody else's money that they had the fortitude to go and build. Like you just said it. Like, you don't have the economic brain to figure it out. I don't either. I probably couldn't start a small business because I don't fucking know.
No,
I have no idea how it works. I'm a very guttural, instinctual kind of guy. And so I'm not going to begrudge or take somebody's money who had that fortitude. Right. You know, just like that's the attitude that I have that I don't think a lot of other people have. They kind of just want to be given stuff. And with that too, I see people who are given stuff all the time and they're not better. Right. I see all these young kids who have the whole world presented to them, and they're stupid. Like, educationally, they're stupid. They have no idea how to critically think in the real world, and they're entitled little bitches, you know. And they're like, well, why do I have to clean a table? Because that's your fucking job. You know what I mean? And so I think that is a real issue that we really like. That's something that me and you can tackle on a more fundamental level. That I know that President Trump or President Biden or whoever's next is not going to solve. Yes. You know, they can't solve how we look at things. And how we look at things right now, I think, is with a pretty shitty view. And a stupid view, honestly. Does that make sense? Or
it does, man. It does.
You know what I
And with that, I think I'll have a cigarette. And
we got to go. We can wrap it up. Is there anything you wanted to promote, Tom? Were you working on anything? I know you want to be wonk at Twitter.
No, just that and militantwire.com. And I haven't written anything personally in a while because I've been working this job. So
are you editing?
I'll be doing a lot of editing.
Can people send their work to you, or
they certainly can? If they want to make a pitch, they can do so to me at Potemkin Brain on Twitter, or tom.lord.mw@gmail.com. And you can send me pitches there if you would like to write about armed conflict and terrorism.
Did you do your Substack?
Yes, I did. Yeah. You want to be wonk.
All right, cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, Tom. It's been a fun conversation. We kind of went all over the place.
It was great. It was a wild one. It was a fun one. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, man. Bye.
Come on, dude.